like wine as well, just putting it out there. Fit that in the spare time. Thank you, Jim, for that really great honour. I'm sorry I've disobeyed your first instruction, which was to switch off my phone, but I've gone paperless, so my speech is here, hopefully. I have had the privilege in my career at the Open University to present educational awards to thousands of students, several thousand students, and also to honorary awardees for contributions to society. But I never honestly anticipated that I would find myself being honoured in this way, and I'm greatly moved and touched, and thank you very much for that. Many years ago, when I received my master's degree from the University of Manchester, a well-known footballer from one of the local teams, and I'm not going to name either him or them, but you can decide which is the footballer you dislike the most and the team you dislike the most. He was awarded an honorary master's degree at the same ceremony, and I was pretty resentful, actually, because I thought, you know, I've worked really, really hard for the qualification I'm going away with today, and all he's done is play football. So I just want to make it absolutely clear that my greatest pleasure in being here today is seeing you all receiving the awards you've worked so hard for in front of all your family and friends and supporters, and all those people who've supported you in your journey. And as Jim said, I know that many of you will have juggled work, family life, and other responsibilities with your studies, which makes your success even more special. My own higher learning journey, I have to admit, didn't begin very well. At school, I worked a lot harder at being a teenager than I actually did at my studies, and I'm sure that you all appreciate that between the ages of 16 and 18, there's lots of other things that you can get involved in other than your A-levels. But to be honest, I didn't get it. I just did not get the learning. I didn't really understand what it was that other people were able to get from that teaching experience in that school. And I didn't believe that I was smart or clever or anything like that, completely lacking in any self-belief whatsoever. And now I'm as gobby as anyone, as you can see, so it didn't last for always. After many disastrous adventures, I entered the world of work, and it wasn't long until I began to think that there had to be more to life, and there had to be better ways of doing the things that I was doing. I won't go into the list of not very exciting jobs that I undertook, except to say that I got sacked from the bakery for being a distraction to the men. That was at the age of 18. We live in a different world now, fortunately, so that can't happen anymore. But the things that changed it for me were threefold. I went to night school to redo one of my A-levels. I had a small child by then, so I know what it's like to work while to study while you're looking after a child. And I did really well. It was simply a different kind of environment, designed for adults, well taught and well supported. And I passed that A-level. Secondly, I discovered the Open University, the best learning experience that I'd ever had, which opened up a world of things to learn and ways of learning that I had never experienced before. And the third thing was being able to get a grant to go full-time to the local poly as a face-to-face student, not just for my fees, but for maintenance as well. Sadly, opportunities like that are now much more limited. There are far fewer night classes, and indeed, I think very, very much less adult further education provision in this country. This year, I lost my mum at the age of 93. She was the epitome of a lifelong learner who took lessons where they arose. She sought out learning on the things that interested and enthused her. She made a contribution to society in many ways that were seen as voluntary and informal rather than formal. She didn't have any formal credentials, but she didn't really want them. One of the things she got a huge amount from was local authority adult education classes. She studied pottery, which she absolutely loved. And she did that for many, many years. And she even actually took some exams, not because she wanted to, but because the only way she could continue to study was to sign up for the exam. So that, you know, there are ways that we're constrained in our educational experiences. But I remember when she told me that the funding for those classes was no longer available. She was upset for herself, but she was also upset for some of her fellow students who attended those classes because it was the only thing in their lives that made them feel valued, that helped their health and their welfare, kept them out of hospital, and supported good mental health. There is more to education than just the learning outcomes. Another big change occurred when grants for university study were replaced by loans for both tuition and maintenance. As I said, I was able to get my fee. I didn't pay anything for my fees, and I had a maintenance grant and not a loan. Nowadays, the average maintenance loan doesn't even cover the annual cost of a hall of residence, let alone food, course materials, and anything else you might want to spend money on. So in order to study full-time in higher education in this country, it is absolutely essential either to have family who can support you financially or employment, which will take you away from your study time. It's a really sad state of affairs, I think. So it's increasingly expensive, and I would argue exclusive, to be able to study higher education. The only Open University is still an option, and I was really pleased with the TEF Gold that we got. And this very institute is another example of places where people can find the opportunities to study that suit their lifestyle and their particular point in their careers. But I think somebody who was in my position when I left school would find it much harder in the UK to return to learning now. I have to say that Wales and Scotland, and if you look at the things that they're doing there around funding and grants, etc., seem to be much more enlightened. Jim did mention the Lifelong Learning Bill, which passed into law this month, and that will provide a lifelong learning entitlement of £37,000. I hope it increases with inflation, but we'll see, over your lifetime. And that's a huge and welcome change, but it needs the sector also to change so that all those who study can do so. So going back to my journey, I recently retired, as Jim said, from the Open University after a 30-year career in higher education, during which I developed that passion for and commitment to the role of education in social justice. At an early point in that journey, I came across the words of Dame Helena Kennedy in a very powerful piece of work. It was a review done for the government called Learning Works in 1997. And in that quote, she expressed so perfectly my own beliefs and the power of learning. She said, "Education strengthens the ties which bind people, takes the fear out of difference, and encourages tolerance." I'm going to repeat that because I think it's really important, and I'd love you to remember these words as well. Education strengthens the ties which bind people, takes the fear out of difference, and encourages tolerance. She went on to say that education, helps people to see what makes the world tick and the ways in which they individually and together can make a difference. It is the likeliest means of creating a modern, well-skilled workforce, reducing levels of crime and creating participating citizens, a little bit like the things that Jim was just talking about now. If we want to achieve these things, it is not just the funding that has to be sorted. We absolutely have to challenge our sector to be and to do differently. And it's really hard because we're constrained by regulation and finance, and maybe we can only achieve the change that we want or need incrementally. But I think we owe it to society to ensure that learning can happen, just like Cinzano, anytime, any place, anywhere. We owe it to society to recognise, as Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie so powerfully said, that there is more than a single story. We must not dictate who can learn and what they should learn, but work together for the common good. So you who are receiving your awards today all have a role to play in creating an inclusive, supporting and nurturing world where every one of us can thrive. I have enjoyed every moment of my career, and I hope all of yours will be as fulfilling and enjoyable. Thank you.